You've heard the podcast, now read the book. A Murder Most Foul, The Life of a Hitman. The new novel by Richard Marx. Enter the mind of a contract killer who committed one of the most inexplicable crimes of the 20th century. The inside story will shock you. The News Echo says, Marx has crafted an engrossing novel that is the literary equivalent to a jigsaw puzzle. The Westchester Journal says, Richard Marx writes with confidence and conviction. The voice is world-weary but sharp, poetic but not flowery. His prose is filled with gallows humor, literary allusions, and sentences that often read like lyrics or spoken-word confessionals. A Murder Most Foul, The Life of a Hitman. Available in hardcover, paperback, and ebook from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever fine books are sold. From Oxford Press. Greetings, friends. This is Dr. Richard Marx, and welcome to A Murder Most Foul, The Life of a Hitman, a reading of my unpublished novel in chapters. I hope you'll enjoy it. Chapter 38. Then, Homeward Bound. We believe that we could change ourselves. The past can be undone. But we carry on our back the burden time always reveals. Fallen by Sarah McLachlan, from her 2003 album, Afterglow. It was now 9 a.m. I was covered in blood, fortunately not my own, and I was facing a 20-hour drive where I was well aware I would be alone with my own thoughts, and I felt like that would be the worst penance imaginable. On the plus side, the apartment complex had an underground parking, so I wouldn't have to be trekking my blood-covered self across any parking lots out in the open. Adjust, adapt, and improvise, and get the hell as far away from here as possible. I drove up to a small town called Conroe and found an office building with an underground parking garage. I decided it was wise to skip states where William Weebling might be on the radar: Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Ohio. Unfortunately, I was in Texas and pretty much had to go through Louisiana or Oklahoma. Mexico was an option, but international borders were always tricky, and not having a passport with me didn't help. I sat there in a mercifully dark parking garage. The past 72 hours finally hit me. I had butchered 2 men, escaped arrest for a double homicide, abandoned the most incredible woman I'd ever met, and probably ruined her life in the process. All my life had been a long, slow knife. I yanked out my pistol and held it to my head. I couldn't think of one reason to live. Death would be a blessing. But me, the great hitman who had callously killed so many people, couldn't finish this job. I didn't have the balls. I just sat there and cried like a fucking baby, and fell asleep. The odor of coral honeysuckle woke me from a dream. Gabs and I replaying the previous night, although it was already starting to feel like a million years ago. I could hear Gabriella telling me that she wanted me inside of her, while in my heart I knew she was inside of me. The confusion, the agony I was feeling was indescribable. I had to get home. I needed to be alone. But the first thing I needed was gas. There's a big advantage to driving at 3 a.m. The advantage is you're under cover of darkness. The disadvantage is that there aren't any other cars on the road, other than cops. I found some clothes on an old clothesline, just like in the movies, and disposed of the blood-soaked ones, bought gas, took a birdbath shower at an all-night gas station. The last 3 days had been so much more than a carnal carnival. It felt more like I had been bestowed with the sacrament of love. I felt like I had never felt in my life. That had been ripped away, but that also made me feel like I had never felt before, bloodthirsty. I decided that though it was dangerous, I would journey back to Tulsa, to the scene of the crime. There were 6 men whose names were revealed by Gabriella almost 17 years ago. 17 years ago, the night I fell in love with a girl who had a swollen jaw, a black eye, and a split lip, and bled all over my sheets. Today, they would all die. And again, I didn't intend on showing any mercy or kindness. No statute of limitations. Tulsa didn't look like I remembered it from 15 years ago. Not that I cared. I wasn't there as a tourist. A little research told me that the devil had already taken care of 2 of the 6 candidates. One had taken his own life, and I imagine that it was due to guilt over the atrocities he and his friends had committed on Gabs. But I knew it was probably something as minor as a small business deal that didn't go his way, or something like that. The others were easy prey, dying with either curses or prayers on their lips. When I took the last one, the preacher at his church, I was certain as the life drained from him I could hear the gates of hell opening and the wail of 1,000,000 banshees. These were all church-going men, in the Lord's house on Sunday and wearing their hoods and spewing bile against coons, kikes, and Catholics the other 6 days of the week. Hypocrites and Pharisees all. 6 less in the world. It's a start. As I drove, I was overwhelmed by my own horrible thoughts. I felt as if I was on gravity's rainbow. No matter how high your life rockets to the stars, gravity's rainbow will always bring you crashing to earth in a fireball of death and destruction. Making childhood friends with Gabs, meeting my surrogate father and Sarge, my group of brothers in Nam, our team in Canada, and most importantly, reconnecting with Gab. All high points in my life that left me worse off than if they had never happened. I feel both physically and mentally mangled. I knew I could never have a mindless pleasure for the rest of my life. I was heading directly east on Highway 4 in an effort to get out of the states where William Weebling's name might ring any old bells. As I crossed the Mississippi River into Tennessee, I felt both a sense of relief and agonizing pain. What good was being safe when I had nothing to live for? Above the highway, on the wires, were crows and more crows. The telephone wires were covered in black, maleficent crows. I stopped to get gas, and the attendant started making conversation. "Did y'all see them crows?" "Yes, it's a murder. That's what a bunch of crows are called, a murder." "Well, then, it's a murder of fowl," he snorted. "Technically, crows aren't fowl. They're corvidae." "Huh?" was the most intellectual response he could formulate. "Never mind, keep the change." And I returned to the road and the murder. I drove until I couldn't stay awake and spent the night in Knoxville. Well, actually, in a one-horse about an hour from Knoxville named Etowah. I was trying to stay off the radar as much as possible. During the drive, I had time for introspection. I can only imagine how much Gabriella must hate me. I can't help but worry about her. My betrayal was complete. Every time I tried to think up an alternate scenario in which I get the girl and live a happy life, they all lead back to the problem that I never told Gabriella the truth, and never came clean. I came very close, but apparently moonlight on the banks of the Mississippi was more conducive to awkward sex than rather lengthy confessions. I've already told you that I'm not a religious man. Heaven and hell, sin and redemption, it's bullshit for children or those too feeble-minded to approach it logically. But that being said, and I don't intend on sounding glib about this, but at that moment, any chance of redemption, the one shot that the blessing of her love gave me, was gone. If I ever had a soul, it would be black. I felt a burning hatred for everything. I am become death. Thank you for listening to A Murder Most Foul, The Life of a Hitman, copyright 2025, as read by me, the author, Dr. Richard Marks. A new chapter will be posted each week. A Murder Most Foul is produced and recorded at Batavia Studios in Jakarta. This podcast and A Murder Most Foul, The Life of a Hitman are solely works of fiction, and any similarities to persons living or dead are merely coincidental. The music used in this podcast is the second movement of Franz Schubert's Piano Trio in E-flat, Opus 100. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to email me at drrichardmarks@gmail.com. That's drrichardmarcs@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please like and subscribe to the podcast and tell a friend. Thank you, and until next week, be more than you seem.